BYU takes down Colorado 24-21. Mitch Harper, Kyle Ireland coming to you from Boulder, Colorado. Cougs get it done. They were down 14-0. They stormed back, tied for the largest comeback victory in the Kalani Sitake era. Memorable night for BYU, 4-0 now in the 2025 season, 1-0 in Big 12 play. The Cougs are flying high. They're riding high. They stormed out of the gates. Well, they kind of stumbled out of the gates, unlike Ralphie, who, very impressive. Ralphie 7 was quite the show here at Folsom Field in Boulder. But your thoughts on BYU's big win tonight here in the Mile High?
Yeah, BYU should be pretty thankful that they came away victorious tonight because there were a lot of mistakes, things that they're definitely going to be glad that they can learn from a win as opposed to a loss. There are things that they're going to be able to clean up. But I feel like there were a number of things that were stepping stones each of these first three games, and then you saw a level of competition kind of stepped up as far as Big 12 play is concerned. And I was really impressed, Mitch, with Bear Bachmeier and his poise throughout this game. I thought Bear was outstanding. He made good decisions for the most part. There were a few plays that I'm sure he's going to look back on film and say, hey, I probably shouldn't have thrown that. It was too tight of a window. Because at the end of the day, I think that BYU's lucky that there weren't a couple of turnovers that could have taken place in this game. But sometimes you do have to get lucky in order to be at the spot they are right now, 4-0 on the season. And so Bear, I thought, for a true freshman, hostile road environment and crowd that really was just I was impressed with the Colorado crowd as far as the noise, the volume on the first few series of this game. I was like, wow, this crowd brought it tonight as far as the energy is concerned. And so to be able to have the poise and to be able to score a couple of touchdowns, I thought his connection with Chase Roberts really shined tonight. And then to be able to run the ball as effectively as he was able to, I thought those were big keys for BYU's victory.
BYU took Colorado's best shot and came out victorious, and I think that's one of the things you take away from this game. You know, I don't look at Colorado as maybe being more than a team just fighting for bowl eligibility this season. We're still learning a lot about BYU, but in a wide-open Big 12 where you can't predict it from week to week, I think BYU's in a grouping of 4 or 5 teams that looks like they might have the makeup to be a group that could contend for a Big 12 title. But BYU took Colorado's best swing, and they responded and still came out on top. That's a good sign for this BYU team going forward that it's not going to be all roses. You know, the first 3 games in non-conference play, pretty much in the bag in the fourth quarter. BYU had to earn this win in every sense of the word, and they did that. I thought Bear Bachmeier, you bring up him, 19 of 27 passing the football to 179 through the air, 2 touchdown passes, and then on the ground, the workload for Bear Bachmeier, 15 carries, 98 yards. Bear had a massive workload. Kalani even said in the postgame, we'll give it to him 40 times if we need to, just to get the win. We'll find any way necessary to make that happen. That might be a little much, but hey, Bear is a physical runner. He was bouncing off Colorado defenders, making big-time plays. I thought that third down was 3rd and 17 late in the third quarter. He picks up 16 yards to get BYU into a 4th and manageable, which at the time, L.J. Martin's out, and Enoch Nawahine picks it up on 4th down. Bear Bachmeier had an exceptional game. He continues to pass every level. It's like a video game almost. He just continues level 1, 2, 3, and 4. They're all getting tougher, the challenges, and he continues to pass them. Bear Bachmeier, I thought this was his best game as a BYU Cougar, and it might be a situation where this guy could be really big time for BYU going forward.
Yeah, I felt like for the most part tonight, he was able to step up and he rose to the occasion. When BYU needed a play to be made, he went and made that play. I think to Chase's first touchdown where BYU goes for it on 4th down, Mitch, and it wasn't probably Bear's best throw of the game, but he put it at a spot where Chase came out of his break perfectly. I mean, that was one of those kind of routes where Chase broke out to the outside, and it was just like, you can't defend that.
The Colorado defensive back, Teon Parks, was completely juked out of his shoes. I mean, he slipped a little bit too, but Chase ran a excellent route.
Yeah, he was outstanding tonight, Chase, with 2 touchdowns on the day, and I really felt like the combination of adversity that BYU faced and the guys like Chase that stepped up. Carson Ryan had a really nice performance as well, I feel like, and especially not just his receptions, but I thought he had a few key blocks in this game as well. BYU had their stars shine in this game, and Bear is becoming one of those stars. And then you look on the defensive side of things. I thought when BYU needed those stops, especially in the second half, you look at how the game even ended with Isaiah Glasker and just the animal that he is, and Jack Kelly and the performance that he was able to have. Those guys rose to the occasion. They knew that the game was on the line, so to speak, and ended up helping BYU pull out a 3-point win.
Jack Kelly leads the way for BYU in total tackles, 6 tackles on the night, 2 tackles for loss. Isaiah Glasker, 4 tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and as you noted, the game-clinching interception. Glasker didn't hit the Dion Coach Prime celebration as he did in the Alamo Bowl.
You think he wanted to, though?
I asked him, I said, did you want to? And he's like, I just couldn't do that this time around. So I'd like to think that Kalani maybe got in his ear a little bit, because Kalani doesn't like that stuff. Like, he wants you to be meek and humble and respectful of your opponent. That's just not the Kalani way at all. Not to say that they lectured Coach Glasker last year in the Alamo Bowl, but I think it's just like, hey, we don't need to do that. I think that's just kind of the way Kalani goes about really the way he runs his program, staying humble and staying grounded, and also just kind of being a positive representative of BYU to not give additional ammunition to these fan bases. We'll get to that a little bit later, because we see these fan bases, even if BYU hasn't been there in 44 years, there is this disdain and hatred for BYU. We'll get to that again a little bit later, but BYU was impressive tonight, 24-21. The Cougs get it done. Keep in mind, I thought there was a chance, Kyle, BYU was going to get boat raced. They were down 14-0. Colorado's averaging 7.7 yards per play through the first 2 drives. I'm thinking, what just happened here? But BYU's defense was lights out in non-conference play. What just happened? And they had
a flight delay from North Carolina.
Well, Colorado had a lot of 2 running back sets. They brought in, we were talking about it in the pregame show here on Saturday, Draylon Miller. They utilized him quite a bit in wildcat situations. Caden Salter was taking off and running. Look, we thought BYU was going to win by double digits. So just full disclosure here. We thought that. I thought 31-17, I think was my prediction, or 31-14. I can't remember exactly now. But I thought double digits. But I did say that one thing that made me pause, and I even told this to Hans Olsen on our sibling station on the KSL Sports Zone, the one thing that made me pause is the ability of Caden Salter to run the football. And he looked really good on Saturday night. He had 17 carries, 49 yards. Felt like a little bit lower number than maybe mentally it felt like at times for Salter, but he was impactful. And BYU has been prone to, last year and this year, giving up yardage to quarterback run game. And I say this year because of Salter. There wasn't many threats in the non-conference portion of the schedule. But, BYU responded. I think that's the big thing you come away with, is that, yes, it wasn't pretty. And if this was the Mountain West era or the WAC, you'd be like, oh, no, the style points were there. That doesn't matter in this league. You just got to take care of business, stack up wins, and find ways to get that done. And that's what the Cougars did tonight.
Yeah, I think BYU's defensive line's going to look at this film and think that there was a lot of room for them to improve.
They got to get better.
The amount of times that they didn't keep contain and guys got on the outside, I thought was really discouraging from the press box standpoint of view, where we're looking down at the field and it's just like, oh, so-and-so got outside the tackle box and they're running down the field for an 8-yard gain or a 14-yard gain. I felt like that happened way too often in this matchup, Mitch. You look at like a guy like Bodie Schoonover, though, who ends up having a batted ball down later on in the game, and it was a huge play. And so, like, it wasn't all bad. Like, there were some good moments as well for that front line on the BYU defense. But I just think that this is a good game, and Kalani mentioned it after the game, that BYU hadn't faced adversity this season until tonight. And the fact that they were able to come out with victory while still facing that adversity, it's a good learning opportunity for this program, only a month into this season.
387 total yards for BYU. When it was all said and done for Colorado, they only finished with 291. So BYU's defense tightened up. Again, those first 2 drives, they were lights out.
They got
and then
gashed.
to end up with 291, that speaks again to how BYU took control of this game. BYU, on a night where they don't have Sione Moa as the backup running back to LJ Martin, 208 on the ground for the Cougars, 179 through the air, 119 through the air for Colorado, 172 on the ground for the Buffs, who kind of running back by committee. They had two of their top running backs out this game. Their third and fourth leading rushers didn't matter. Draylon Miller had some success. Mike Welch, Salter. So the Buffs had some success. Again, Pat Shurmur and that offensive attack, they threw their best stuff at BYU, and it still wasn't enough. And I think you should feel good about that for the Cougars moving forward as they kind of continue to navigate Big 12 play, because you went on the road, took their best swing, and you were still out on top. And BYU is a good football team, and I think you continue to see the toughness of this group continue to show up. And you speak about toughness, LJ Martin, he was tough too. Third quarter, he goes down with what looked to be an injury, and I'm thinking, I mean, you saw me, Kyle. I'm sitting next to you in the press box. The whole time I'm just got my binoculars watching LJ, because I've said it so many times on Cougar Tracks, Cougar Sports Saturday, this season goes as far as LJ Martin will take it. Maybe after tonight I'm feeling a little bit more, maybe it's leaning a little more to Bear Bachmeier because he's settling in so nicely, but I just still think LJ is so critical to the success of BYU. LJ goes 15 carries for 58 yards tonight. He returned to action after that brief sideline absence where he was being looked at by Brett Mortensen, the trainer for BYU. But LJ's tough. This BYU football team is pretty tough. And even Enoch Nawahine, he steps in and gets a big fourth down run for the Cougars. They didn't utilize him much tonight. Only that one carry for 4 yards, but Enoch Nawahine coming up with a big run too.
Yeah, that fourth down conversion was huge to be able to move it after Bear had that 16-yard scamper on third down to really, I mean, it felt like BYU was kind of on the ropes on that possession.
Had to get it.
And they had to get it, and they ended up being able to do so. And I just felt like there were, again, it goes back to the fact that when BYU needed a play to be made on these critical scoring drives, they were able to do so. And that says a lot about a team to be able to have the resilience to fight through those tough situations, to be able to find success when it doesn't seem like there is light at the end of the tunnel.
You know, something on a down note, punt return game, it's probably back in favor of Parker Kingston. Tiger Bachmeire struggled mightily. We talked about it in the extended pregame. You know, the starting distance on drives. Think back to BYU's drives in the first half. They're starting from inside the 6-yard line. That was not a recipe for success to put together drives, even though Bear Bachmeier did. They had that drive at the end of the second quarter. Tiger, though, is receiving the punt inside the end zone. You can't do that, Tiger. Now, he didn't put it on the turf, but it just felt like he was a little bit lost a bit as far as where he was on the field. He even fielded a punt on the sideline, on Colorado's sideline. He's got to get better there. It wasn't any surprise Parker Kingston returned as the punt return man. I kind of thought maybe will they bring in Cannon DeVries at punt return, because he looked pretty good in that Portland State game at punt return. They went back to Parker Kingston, who, Parker, to his credit, he had a nice game receiving the football. He had 2 carries, 25 yards, but also 5 catches, 38 yards. Passing the football, much to be desired. He had 2 throws that probably were in traffic. That one to LJ down the field, that was totally covered, double team. Can't make that decision. That was risky. Then he had that one throw that was intended for Bear Bachmeier on a reverse from LJ. He tried to throw it down there.
Threw that one away, though.
That one, like, the specials aren't working. It seemed like they were working at such a high level for BYU for a couple years. It seems like teams are maybe more dialed into Parker Kingston's going to be that special ace
when
in the hole.
When they see him roll out like that, I think that it's just a sign now where these defenses, they have a spy on it, and they know that play's coming. But Parker loves that. He loves that deep ball throw, and you saw that when he was in high school at Roy, and the success that he had there as a quarterback. And I think that BYU, I do like when they have the trick plays come out here and there, Mitch, but they need to be more selective and I guess a little bit more creative, I think, in using those plays. And I feel like maybe they've dipped into that Parker Kingston play a little too much.
Yeah, and I think they got to utilize another guy at receiver more, Cody Hagan. I thought Cody Hagan was really good. He had a 32-yard touchdown run on what was a similar play call to the one they called against Portland State. Hagan is an elite speedster. He has got great speed. He hits that edge of what the tornado play. BYU goes up 24-21 in that spot with 14:02 remaining, which ultimately ended up being the game winner for BYU, getting that Cody Hagan 32-yard touchdown run. Hagan's dynamic. Look, I've said it before. It's kind of like they could utilize him potentially like a Puka Nacua where those are the type of plays Puka was running, all those window dressing type plays that A-Rod really likes. Puka was kind of that guy, and that could be Cody Hagan potentially as JoJo Phillips continues to recover from his injury. It's a banged-up football team when you really dive into it, and Cody Hagan stepped up for BYU, and that's huge. You're getting contributions from guys that, in the Big 12 games, they were not consistent performers, and maybe that gives the confidence to Cody Hagan. Just week after week, he's going to be someone that this team can look upon and rely on him, because I thought Chase Roberts was excellent tonight, as we discussed earlier, but he needs a consistent number 2 alongside him. I thought Kingston was good, and I thought Hagan was good as well. That was nice to see that level of production, and Fesi Sitake always keeps that group tight. He's not digging into the bench much. They've got Reggie Frischneck. They've got Tay Nakua, but they keep that thing tight. They go pretty much with a 3-man look there at that receiver unit, and then you pair it up with Carson Ryan, who's the safety blanket for Bear Bachmeier.
I also will say LJ Martin had 4 catches tonight too, and I thought
did a nice job.
They utilized him more in the passing game than they have previously. And LJ had almost 20 touches tonight, Mitch. I mean, he had a heavy workload. It was him and Bear. It was the duo there.
It was interesting too when BYU went up 17-14. They had that touchdown pass to Chase Roberts, which put him over 2,000 career receiving yards. It was Chase's second touchdown grab. Colorado responded quick. There was that pass from Caden Salter that kind of sailed over Faletau Satuala. It looked like there could have been an interception opportunity there for Faletau that ended up being a big gain for Colorado. And, Tavion Beasley was in at nickel because Tommy Prasis got a little bit banged up. Kalani confirmed that in the postgame. And then Cannon DeVries was in at inside corner later that drive. And instantly, Colorado went on the attack and went at the true freshman. Draylon Miller gets that touchdown pass to put Colorado up. Good scouting by Colorado to know, hey, that's a new freshman in there. Let's go on the attack. Cannon DeVries is going to be a good football player. I've been singing his praises for a long time, but that was a big stage moment, and it was probably a tough learning opportunity of how steep the learning curve is in the Big 12.
Yeah, and I think it kind of brought back to the first 2 possessions that Colorado had in the game where they were able to march down the field so easily. It kind of had a little flash to that, and you were like, oh, okay, like BYU just needed to settle back into who they had been in the second quarter in particular. And later on in that second half, I felt like BYU, they really they shined in the places they needed to in this game, Mitch, while they still needed to, I really think that this week we're going to see West Virginia come to Provo on Friday night. You're going to see a more polished BYU team. I really believe that. Like, BYU's banged up right now, but I think as far as like fundamentally sound, BYU is going to get back to some of those fundamentals because of these coaches. They're going to harp on the mistakes, the mental errors, the things where you're just like, what were you thinking? What were you doing? I mean, you mentioned the Tiger Bachmeier stuff in particular. It's just like those plays, when you start those possessions at those spots on the field deep in your own territory, like that just skews everything for the rest of the drive. And granted, BYU was able to march down on that one where he caught it near the goal line, I believe. It was the one where they were able to score the touchdown on. And so, it's not all the end of the world, but you can't take these mistakes and just say, oh, like it's okay, like
you're
they won.
chasing a Big 12 title.
Yes,
you're
you
chasing
need to
the
minimize
playoff.
these things every single step of the way, and the cleaner football that you can play deeper into the season, the better off you're going to be. And so, good learning experience for BYU tonight. But yeah, there's a lot to clean up.
And when you talk about cleaning things up, that high snap to Bear Bachmeier, it was a 3rd and 8. The previous play, it was a tackle for loss. LJ, 2nd and 4, and tackle for loss of 4 yards. They go to a 3rd and 8. It's a bad snap, high snap. I would have to go review and maybe size up the snap, but it looked like it was to the side, so Bear has to kind of gather it. It goes up in the air, could have been a loose ball. BYU then goes for the decision to kick the football with Will Farron, field goal attempt, 55-yarder. What do you think of that decision? Do you think that was the right move? I mean, easy to say now because BYU won the game, but I kind of thought in the moment, punt that. Even though Will is automatic and he missed that one, which was kind of crazy to see that he is human. But it just felt risky because had he missed it, and he did, put Colorado in a spot where they were in a good field position. They started on their own 37 that following drive.
Yeah, I still think that I would have trusted Will to kick that based off of his success so far this season. I think he was 9 for 9, if I'm not mistaken, going into that kick. And so
25 in a row he made.
Yeah, school record, 25 in a row. I mean, you trust one of your leaders on your team, one of your best players who's been so consistent going back to last season. I think in that situation, you give him a shot. It's unfortunate that he missed it, but again, streaks are made to be broken, right? So now Will maybe can not focus on that. I know he's a one kick at a time kind of a kicker, or says that he is at least, but I do think that, maybe some pressure is relieved with that as well, and maybe he can start a new streak and not have that school record kind of thing in his back of his mind.
One thing that stood out in this game, too, with Colorado's offensive strategy, they didn't take many shots downfield. I was really surprised. I thought the Buffs would want to take some big shots because I kind of associate Coach Prime's teams when he had Shedeur, they're taking the big shots downfield. Their deep threat guy, Sincere Brown, he only had one catch for 8 yards, and that was late in the fourth quarter. He didn't get that catch. BYU, they didn't really target him one. Evan Johnson was on him quite a bit throughout the evening, but they were not taking the deep shots. Maybe that was a credit to BYU's secondary and their defense. They were just kind of taking the short, intermediate stuff and kind of trying to find ways with the quarterback run game. That kind of caught my attention in this game as well. But BYU, of course, closed it out with an Isaiah Glasker interception. Just a great moment for Glasker and a great moment for Cougar Nation, who made that trip to Boulder. Much shorter drive or trip or travels to Boulder compared to Greenville, North Carolina. I'm sure a lot of the fans that were here tonight were probably from the state of Utah or in the nearby area. I know you were talking to some fans from Grand Junction, about 4-hour drive to this game. Cougar fans, it shouldn't amaze me anymore, but they just always show up, Kyle, and it's just really impressive to see. I kind of just enjoy seeing how big the gatherings of Cougar fans are at these games. Like, I know Cougar fans have always shown up. I remember games at USC in 2003 where they got 20,000 fans. But it just feels like it's a real point of pride for Cougar Nation now to always try to show up in these venues more than ever before, because it wasn't always like this. They're just showing up at a high level, and they're making their presence felt. They're wearing the blue. They are making their voices heard. And I think what's also you can enjoy about BYU is that they're also not being rude to Colorado fans either. Colorado students, man, as we get on this, they were having curse word BYU, curse word the Mormons. I just don't get it, Kyle. I don't understand why this has to be a thing every time. Like, bleep BYU, fine, whatever. But the other stuff, I just don't get that. I can't wrap my mind around that.
Yeah, I mean, you opened the podcast talking about this is a game that hasn't been played in Boulder between these two schools since 1981. So it's not like a recent development where there's been this heated thing where these teams have played back and forth at each other's fields.
Maybe you hate BYU because of what they did to you in the Alamo Bowl. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But why do you have to make it about
Step over
a religion?
The line. Yeah.
Like, I just don't get it. Like, why is that always the line? I don't know. Like, when BYU played SMU last year, there's no Cougar fans saying bleep the Methodist. When they're playing Baylor, it's not bleep the Baptist. I just don't get it. It just doesn't make sense. And it's always in these Western schools. Like, we've traveled the country seeing BYU football games. We went to Greenville, North Carolina. And look, we had some East Carolina students razzing us a little bit when we were walking the streets on Friday night, going to Sup Dogs and things like that. But it was nothing like, our religion was questioned.
Nothing ever crossed that line.
It just, I don't get it. Like, I don't know why that gets brought up. And look, they're young people, they're students. And that's the thing about college. You're learning, you're evolving, but at the same time, it's just, that's something that I think a lot of these colleges take pride on, being very inclusive and more than ever before, and just being respectful to people. Everyone deserves respect, and just don't make it about that. The bleep BYU, I think everyone can get over that. Like, yes, it's kind of like low. It's not classy. It's a swear word. Why do you got to turn to that?
Yeah.
But at the same time, whatever. But just to make someone feel inferior because of their religion or their faith, that just, I don't know. That just doesn't jive with me, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's well said by you. And I was surprised at how early those chants. I mean, I don't think I heard the Mormons chant until later in the game. I think that was in the second half. But, I mean, after the second Colorado touchdown in the first quarter, I was hearing the BYU one. And
it was early.
It was early on in the game. I was like, oh, wow, like, that's already happening? There's like 5 minutes left in the first quarter, and this is already going on.
Does part of you, though, enjoy seeing BYU is being a little hated again in a conference? Because when they first joined the league, it was just, hey, they're the guys that are handing out ice cream, and hey, BYU, we love you. Like, I mean, it's kind of like what it was in the Mountain West and the WAC, where you're just absolutely hated, and when those times, it was when you were really good. I'm not trying to draw parallels, but if you're hated, you're typically pretty good. I mean, you're not hated when you're bad. Like when BYU was 5-7, we didn't hear these chants. I don't know.
No, that's a fair point. I mean, I wonder how much carryover there is from the Alamo Bowl and just the trouncing that took place there in December of last year, because that was an utter beatdown.
I don't know how we haven't brought this up, though. You were in the post game with Coach Prime. We kind of buried a little bit of the lead, but Coach Prime was asked about it. Like, just your thoughts on what Coach Prime had to say in the post game. He seemed pretty relaxed or pretty complimentary of BYU, rather.
Yeah. Just to cap off the vulgar chants conversation, Coach Prime said that he didn't hear any of that. Like, it was out of sight, out of mind. I'm sure he was locked into the game, and
he's on a headset,
so he's not focusing on what the crowd's saying. So that was his commentary as far as the chants were concerned. But he opened his press conference with a statement about his praise for Kalani Sitake, and Kalani's dad even got a shout out. Pops got a shout out from Coach Prime. But he specifically shouted out Bear Bachmeier and said that young quarterback is phenomenal. That was what the word that he used to describe Bear Bachmeier. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but he said that, Bear was able to go out, make the plays that he needed to in order to win the football game tonight. And so I think that, as Cougar Nation watches Bear develop, Coach Prime's only seen 3 games of film of this true freshman quarterback and already recognizes the talent level that Bear has, and saw it firsthand tonight at Folsom Field. And to be able to have that in the first minute of your press conference and lead with that says a lot to me about Bear Bachmeier, from one of the greatest to ever play on the defensive side of the ball.
I'm a big fan of Coach Prime. I have a lot of respect for Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. I'm really curious to see how he takes shape with this team, to see what he can do with this Colorado team. If you can get that type of effort every week from this Colorado squad, they're going to win some games in the Big 12. But I just wonder if they kind of went above and beyond because of the revenge factor. I know that Coach Prime downplayed that, but it had to have played a big role for those players and the way that they came out. I mean, they were just on fire, man. They were on a roll when they got up 14-0, and I just thought, ooh, BYU's going to have to go back to the drawing board for this one. But so I'm curious to see how Coach Prime takes shape with this team this year at Colorado. But again, I hope Coach Prime continues to stay at Colorado and in the Big 12, because he's great for this league.
Yeah, I mean, he's real. Like, that was the cool thing about his post-game press conference, is there was like no fluff there. He just said his feelings, his thoughts on the game, the matchup. Somebody asked him about their defensive performance, because they've obviously had 3 losses now and some struggles this season. And he was like, the defense gave you guys a chance tonight. And Coach Prime was like, no, they didn't. Like, he dismissed it because he wasn't happy with the result of the game and the fact that they allowed 24 points to BYU. I appreciate the real genuineness of Coach Prime.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. And to the point about Colorado's defense, they had 0 sacks, they had 0 takeaways, so they really didn't create the havoc plays. They had some tackles for loss. They had 5 of those. BYU had 4. But by all accounts, BYU, it was a little bit chaotic early, but they settled in and did a really nice job. And Bear Bachmeier, I think, extending plays with his feet helped that cause. BYU it was a gritty win, Kyle. I mean, I'm really curious to see and watch this game back and replay it to kind of get another deep dive run into this thing. But, I look at this game and go, that was really just a gritty win that you can build on that, and it shapes character. And we'll look back on this season, regardless of what Colorado becomes, you'll say that was a pivotal moment for BYU football in that season. Last year, maybe it was Oklahoma State, when you took Oklahoma State's best shot. And you're like, is Oklahoma State that good? I kind of get similar vibes here with that. I don't think I think Colorado's much better than that, but the point stands. I just think that this was a character-building one, and it's one that you had to have because now, Kyle, I know coaches and players won't do this, but if we do the look-ahead game, I think there's a path to 6-0 before you get to Utah. I mean, we're 3-0, or 3 weeks from BYU facing Utah. It could be 6-0. And you go to that rivalry game, and Utah looked really good against West Virginia. Utah looks like they're getting back on track. That could be 5-1 Utah, 6-0 BYU with high stakes, both Big 12 and nationally. That could be epic. So I think BYU's trending in the right direction.
There's a lot of things that are all out in front of this BYU team. They just need to take advantage of the opportunities that are before them. I think that the thing that I'm going to look at this game maybe a month or two down the road, or even in the next season, Mitch, is this where Bear Bachmeier becomes Bear Bachmeier? Like, I really wonder that because he has lived up to the billing through 4 games. I think he's at 10 touchdowns now, scored on the season, 10 total touchdowns, and 0 turnovers.
That's
and
impressive.
Like you said, the stepping stones of these first 4 games and kind of the ramp up, and now they're in Big 12 play. They've played on the road in the Big 12, and Bears played fairly flawlessly. Can we say that? There were a few throws tonight, and you're like, maybe he thinks differently about that throw next time, but you'll take exactly what you've gotten out of Bear Bachmeier every time based off of the results of these first 4 games and what he's been able to do.
And in the post-game celebration in the locker room, so many players were going on Instagram Live, and then Bear hits the dance, and I asked him, I said, did you hit some dance moves in the locker room? He's probably like, how did you know that, Mitch? Like, aren't you just standing here the whole time? He goes, yeah, I got groovy with my teammates. I'm like, you're like an old soul, Bear. Groovy? But Isaiah Glasker did say he's got the aura. I'm like, ooh. So the aura is already here with Bear Bachmeier because we know the king of aura is Ryder Lyons. I mean, he's got the clout like no one's business. But Bear Bachmeier, he does have a little bit of an aura to him where I think that toughness resonates in the locker room. Because I'll tell you, Kyle, before we wrap it up, I know we got to get out and get to bed maybe. I think one of the things that I was really concerned about going into the season with a true freshman quarterback starting was how do veterans respond to that? Because tonight began the quest of winning a Big 12 title for those veterans that came back, turned down the portal, turned down NFL opportunities to run it back to, one, improve their personal careers and development, but from a bigger picture, because I think this program is bought in for stuff that's greater than oneself, the program and going to win a Big 12 title. And I don't think any senior was like, hey, you freshmen, you better not screw this up. And Bear, I think he's won those guys over. Like, if there was anyone that was like saying, is this in doubt, or was this the right move to go with Bear? I think he's won everyone over. I think he won everyone over probably early in the season, much earlier than tonight. But tonight, if you were still on the fence on that locker room about Bear Bachmeier and his ability to win football games, you're all in now. Because that dude laid it all out on the line, and he was tough as nails, running the football, sat in the pocket and completed some tough throws, a lot of quick hitters, screens out into the flat. I thought BYU was very good and smart with those play calls. I thought Bear just had a really nice night, and I think that was one where you get everyone on board, regardless of age, whether it's the veterans, Sam Vanderhaar, Logan Latui, like the older guys in the building, or the youngsters. They're all in on Bear Bachmeier. And you need that. You need to have everyone on the same page to get a quarterback to the highest of highs that you want to get that guy to, and Bear Bachmeier's well on his way.
I also think that you need to have the fan base behind you, and I think he's won over the fan base as well, Mitch. Yeah. And I had some questions coming out of fall camp and wondering whether or not they would go with McKay Hillstead and use his experience as kind of the reason for him winning that job. And so there was a lot of unknowns with Bear coming into the season. Just the fact that he was a true freshman, hadn't played any games at the college level, and it's just been impressive, Mitch. I think that, what we've seen from him is better than I think anyone could have expected from an outside perspective. These guys have seen him in practice every day. They know what he's doing, day in and day out. But I've been impressed with who he is and the toughness. I mean, You tweeted about one of his runs tonight, and you said something about him being a grizzly bear. He's a grizzly bear. He's a centaur. He's whatever nickname you want to give him. He's a tank. He's a tough football player, but he's going back to Aaron Roderick and Kalani Sitake and why he won the job. Good decisions. He keeps on stacking good decisions after good decisions, and really at the end of the day, like when you take care of the football, how many times has Kalani Sitake said it? The ball, when you have possession of it, the program is in your hands, and Bears have been able to take care of the program so far.
He was really good tonight. 19 of 27, again, 179 yards, 70% completion rate. You look at the passing attempts, let's see here, 9 of his last 12 passes he completed. That's being clutch when the lights are brightest. Bear Bachmeier delivered for BYU. Needs to improve the slow starts. I think these first quarters are kind of weird for him. He's got to improve there. This whole team's got to improve on getting off to faster starts, but they'll get going. And I think this is a step in the right direction for this BYU football team as they move to 4-0. You can check out all of our coverage on KSLSports.com. Cougar Tracks every single day, Monday through Friday. And then Kyle and I will be on the air on Cougar Sports Saturday. Actually, not next week because it's General Conference next Saturday, but we'll have some other digital stuff, content that we'll have on the Cougar Sports Saturday feed. So for Kyle Ireland, Mitch Harper from Boulder, Colorado, have a great night, and we will talk to you next time here on Cougar Tracks and Cougar Sports Saturday.